Here is a question most leaders and entrepreneurs don't ask themselves enough, but absolutely should. Is the way that you're showing up really aligned with where you're going next? A little bit of food for thought. Because when your business evolves, your industry shifts, or your company that you work for transforms, you have a decision to make. You can either A, evolve with it because their next level of growth supports your brand's vision for growth as well and it's aligned, or two, you realize that your current positioning no longer fits and you need to make a decision around a future strategic shift. But here is where most leaders and business owners will get stuck. They actually don't make a choice. Instead, they wait to see what actually happens. While others around them might end up stepping up, maybe changing their brand, redefining their presence, and really start positioning themselves for what's next. So, today we're really talking about why leadership transformation is an opportunity as a turning point for your personal brand. What happens when your positioning and presence don't match, and how to make some intentional decisions so you either own your own space in the transformation or step into a bigger leadership role in your own career or business. So here's what I know based on years of experience in this space. Successful leaders and entrepreneurs don't just react to change. They choose how they want to move through it, and they consciously make a decision. So let's get into the episode. Let's be honest, whether you're leading a company, running your own business, there will always come a moment when you realize that the way either you've been positioning yourself is no longer enough for where you want to go. And this could be due to a number of different reasons. One could be maybe the organization that you're working with is evolving and you're being seen and the role that you play as different in the organization. Two, the industry is shifting and the conversations you actually need to be in have actually shifted. Or three, the business is actually scaling and you're now stepping into this much larger leadership identity. And here is why and where personal brand becomes critical. If your brand presence and positioning don't evolve with your business or your career, you can sometimes risk falling into one or two traps. One being you just start feeling completely disconnected. You start questioning your role, the voice you have, and whether you still fit in the spaces that you once really led in. Or two, you actually get overlooked because the decision makers, industry leaders, and clients are actually looking for people who clearly represent their future vision. So before I keep going, I want you to check in with yourself. Think about your environment today. Ask yourself, do you still feel like you've got influence in your space? Whether that's corporate, your industry, or your business, whatever it is that's important to you. Two, does your current personal leadership brand reflect where you want to go next? And three, are you actively being positioned as a key player or are you fading into the background? And if you don't know, then it's time for you to find out. What happens when your leadership brand doesn't actually match the next level maybe that you want to get to or the organization wants you to get to? So let's talk about what happens when you start feeling that disconnect. Leaders and entrepreneurs don't take action when it comes to times of change and transformation. And so here are a couple of things that might pop up. One is you start playing small. Because you're no longer feeling really aligned where things are going, imagine it like the plates are kind of moving underneath you, you actually stop fully showing up. I know because I've been there. You hesitate before you speak in meetings, panels, online, because you're just starting to question yourself. Two, that kind of leads to your credibility weakening. And if your brand doesn't evolve, people will still see you as who you were before and not where you're going to next. Let that sink in for a second. That happens a lot, especially in the entrepreneurial space or business owner space, where they're still branding themselves like they're a beginner. Number 3 in this space is really where your growth opportunities actually start to stagnate a little bit. Not because you aren't skilled, but because you aren't visible in the right way. Whether it be clients, executives, decision makers, they actually move towards whose brand is being positioned clearly for what is next. So the real question for you becomes, what are you going to do about it? So now that we've kind of broken that down, let's talk about how you can actually make an intentional move. Whether that means stepping up from your current space or repositioning for a bigger opportunity, there's probably 3 key areas you need to consider. 1, fundamentally, I will always say you need to go back to reassessing your leadership brand values. So take a step back. Is what being positioned in front of you, does that actually match your next level vision of you? If yes, then you need to refine that leadership personal brand to strengthen your influence, right? So you can keep chasing. If no, then you need to actively start to reposition yourself before you get stuck in an outdated identity. Number 2 is all about presence and visibility. So if you're, let's say, in an organization or in corporate, you need to ensure that your presence is really aligned with the roles and the leadership qualities and expectations that you're seeing put out in front of you. If you're a business owner, then you'd be looking more at refining your brand messaging, your visuals, your authority positioning in that space. And then thirdly, it's about owning your decision and actions, because in the end, only you can make those changes. So the worst thing you can do in times of change and transformation is just to wait and see what happens. Yes, there's that stage at the beginning where you're unsure what might be going on, and fair enough. Sometimes the best things at that point, that early stage, is not to do anything. But it's your opportunity to, you can still get clarity and make sure you've revisited those leadership brand values during that time period. Because whether you're evolving your leadership brand or pivoting to something new, you always need to remember that you need to control the narrative. Otherwise, the narrative is going to be written for you. So those leaders and business owners who are thriving, they're not waiting. They're actually already making the moves and structures and changes that allows them to control that narrative, because they're actively choosing their next step. So here's what I want you to take away today. 1, whether you're in a career, business, industry is evolving, your personal brand needs to evolve as well. You either need to take hold of it or you're going to risk being left behind. Staying in between and not making a decision, that's not an option. So here's your next moves if something like this is happening around you. I want you to audit your leadership brand. Does it align with your next vision? Decide where you want to stand. Are you stepping up for that next role, or is it time for that bigger shift? If you're ready to refine your personal brand and take your leadership presence to that next level for bigger opportunities, then let's chat. Because if you're not sure what might be missing, it might be time for a bit of an audit across the whole lot. And that is what my free brand and style audit call is all about. We're going to assess the 5 core areas and determine which ones we need to focus on next so that you ensure you're making moves on your own terms. And if this episode got you thinking, hit subscribe and drop me a DM and let me know. I'd love to hear.